Are you in frame?
I can see myself in the picture. If that's what you're asking.
That's all. That's all.
I can see my image reflected. But I don't like what's
What's happening, party people? Welcome to Punchboard Party. My name is Daniel. This is Father Greg, and we are here once again for our best board games of the month. This month has been kind of crazy for the Pedal family. We've been sick a lot, and so I played a lot of games at the beginning of the month. And there was a lull where a lot didn't happen, and then I played quite a bit at the end of the month. You've been playing games all month long.
Yeah, so I would say there was still a kind of a lull in the middle of the month, but then the past week I probably added about 10 games to that list.
Right.
So the Christmas break was a good time.
Yeah, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been very cool. So if you are new to this channel, what we do every month is we just talk about all of the games that we've played in a month, and then we declare what our favorite board game we played that month is. And if you are a friend of the channel and familiar with what's going on, you know what's up. Engage in the comments down below. Let us know what your best board game you've played this month is, or what you've played this month. We'd love to hear and see your big list of games. It always gives us ideas of games that we want to play as well. So without any further ado, I will kick us off. And the first game that I played in the month of December was Heat. Pedal to the metal, baby.
Pedal to the metal.
And so I played Heat in like 3 or 4 times in quick succession. Like there was a weekend where I played it like Friday, Saturday, Sunday night. And you know what? Everyone's going crazy about this game. Like this game is getting really amazing reviews. Like it was on like all the Dice Tower top 10 lists.
Yeah.
Like everybody is loving Heat Pedal to the Metal. I don't know. Like I'm slowly warming up to this game. Like every time I play it, I enjoy it a little bit more. And I kind of, things click for me where I'm like, okay, maybe this is the game that people are talking about. But what I do find about the game, so it's a racing game where you play cards from your hand to get your car around the track. And there's kind of, you have heat cards that will start to gum up your hand. And you have to kind of, you're able to spend those from your engine to do extra things. Once they go into your discard pile, then they start gumming up your hand. And you got to find ways to get rid of them in the back of your engine. And so it's a cool tension. There's a cool, you know, you pick the gear you're in and that's how many cards you get to play. And then there's little markers on corners that tell you how you gotta restrict your speed. So it's neat. It does everything that a racing game does, like Formula Day or whatever. Probably the best I've seen. But in the middle of every game, I feel like it just sort of lags a little bit. What do I want to say? I want to say that my initial experience of Heat is that what makes the game a game also makes it not fun. I don't like having to slow down at the corners.
Right.
The fun part about this game is just opening up and just going for it. So yeah, I'm still warming up to this game, but it's staying in my collection and it's going to see a lot of play because it's a good weight for families and it is plays 6, so it's just like really accessible.
Right.
So it's going to see a lot of play still.
For me, this would rank like, it's easily better than Formula Day for me. Flamme Rouge, I would say it's a close one. I don't know. There are some things I don't like about Flamme Rouge. I think those things are a little bit fixed in Heat. Downforce, I think I prefer it to Downforce. The only other racing game I suppose would be like Jamaica, although it's a very different type of game.
I don't count Jamaica when I'm talking about
But I mean, so I think like this could be definitely in the running for my favorite racing game of that particular genre.
Yeah.
It's definitely at least in that conversation, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Right on. I played 2 games of Mind Management.
Okay.
This is a game that Dan Pestabot play tested.
That's right.
At a certain point in his infancy. So yeah, this is a really interesting hidden movement game of the, you know, in the genre of like Letters from Whitechapel or any Scotland Yard, that kind of thing. Although in a very kind of different way. There's a little bit more complexity. There's a little bit more rules to pay attention to. The art design is like a whole other beast that's kind of like just out there. It's pretty cool. It kind of is neat, but it's like a really weird theme about like psychic agents kind of, manipulating other people. But yeah, a really interesting sort of hidden movement tactical game.
It's really a straight port of a comic book. And so the art is right from the comic book.
That's right.
Like this. I don't particularly enjoy the art myself, so that kind of takes away from the game for me. But as far as hidden movement games go, I really do like this. But I don't love hidden movement games, but I just like it does it well. It's neat.
Yeah.
It's very clever.
So I'm anxious to get this one played. I've played once and I've won, and I've played the other time and I lost. So
okay,
I'm good. I'm like
you gotta get rubber in there.
That's right. And then I also played. I have a priest friend who's kind of getting new into board games.
Okay.
So he's like
Padres!
never played any games before, and so we played a handful of games with him so far. But he's addicted now. He's always asking me when the next time we're getting together to play games is.
A new YouTube channel, I hear.
Yeah. No, definitely not. But anyways, we played The River. This is a Days of Wonder game, which, in my opinion, is an underrated introduction to worker placement.
Okay.
A very, very simple, you put a worker here, you get 3 bricks, you take those bricks, you build a building with the bricks, like you fulfill a contract card, you go back to get more bricks or stone or wood or whatever.
Right.
That's it. Like there's a few little things about where you put your buildings, what kind of tiles you want to build in different columns and so on. Different terrain types, but really accessible. Just a great little introduction.
Okay, yeah, because this gets just a lot of like this is the doomsday sign.
That's right. Everyone
the doomsday sign of Days of Wonder
because they came out with like Quadropolis and then like Yamatai, which like were both like Quadropolis maybe not so much, but Yamatai certainly was like a step heavier. And then they came up with The River. I think people were expecting like something like 5 Tribes or Yamatai to come out.
Yeah.
And they just got this like really introductory worker placement, and they're like, "What is this?"
Right.
But like,
I still haven't played it. I had eyes on this when it came out, and then I heard the reviews, and I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll pass. Okay, next for me, at the beginning of the month, I was still in Glass Road fever, baby. So I played another game of Glass Road, and hot dog, man, that game
keeps on chugging.
It's the game that keeps on giving.
Wow.
But I did not do well at all.
Oh,
I did very terribly. I played 3 cards every round except for 1 round out of my 5.
right.
So it's a game where you have a hand of cards, and if other players play the same card, then that card, if you have that copy, gets drawn out of your hand. But if they don't, then it doesn't, and you can only play up to 3 cards on your own volition. And so I was just stinking out in the cards that I was picking. And still love the game, but it starts to get a little bitter taste in your mouth when you're not doing so well.
So the next 2 games I played are fairly light kind of weight games. One was Fantasy Realms, so
Nice.
kind of an everyday classic, and we played it a number of times now recently, and just picking up cards, trying to get the best like 6-card hand that you can, or whatever, 8 cards or whatever it is, and just really interesting the way that different cards sort of combo with each other. And the other one was Letter Jam. So Letter Jam is like, you just make it a 5-letter word, but your opponent can only see most of the letters except for their own. And so you're spelling out a word, and you're like, it's, blank, whatever your letter is, and then W-O-R-D. And you're like, well, what the heck letter could it be? And then eventually you figure out it's an S, it's sword. I must have an S in front of me, and you have to do that 5 times to figure out sort of like what the letters are. But sometimes you get a letter, and the person the word gives you, the letter could be 5 different possibilities.
Right.
So you're like, I don't know if I have an S in front of me, a T, an R, it could be any number of different things. Just a really interesting kind of like word game. Just a really lovely experience.
So you talk about this game a lot. I still haven't played it. When I go to Mary Dallas's, I see it on their shelf, and I'm like, oh, there it is. Next. Okay, speaking of games I didn't really want to play. So I went over to a buddy's house, and he was talking up Obsession.
Okay,
He had Obsession, and he wanted to
Nice.
get played, and he was like, come over, and we'll play Obsession and stuff. And so then he invited me over with a couple of other people, Dallas being one of the other couple people. And so we go over, and Obsession's on the table with a couple other games, and just in the course of conversation, Obsession just went back on the shelf. And I was like, well, Dinosaur Island Roarin' Right is what we ended up playing instead.
Oh, I was getting so excited. Finally played Obsession.
No, I was so close, but no cigar, man. Are we playing hand grenades, kiddo? No, I don't think we are. Anyway, so Dinosaur Island Roarin' Right, I wasn't really feeling it, but it turned out to be pretty good. So I don't love Dinosaur Island. I see what people love about Dinosaur Island, but I myself, I just think it's sort of too big, too long, too inflated for what you get out of it. It is a nice sort of worker placement, dice, placement-ish, dice selection, drafting, resource. It's good. And I thought that the Roar and Write kind of distilled all the things that were neat about Dinosaur Island and put it in a nice streamlined package. And so, yeah, you're drawing lines on your own little map. You're building your own zoo, and your dinosaur pens are different polyomino shapes that you got to fit in there. You got to build roads attaching them, and you're making kind of like a dino tour route through your different pens and trying to connect them in a line so that they're contiguous and all sorts of things like this. And you know what? Not half bad. Like, it's kind of like, yeah, I'll play that again. You know,
right.
It's not winning any awards or anything, but it's good.
Mm-hmm. My next game is a small game that I've already mentioned, and that's Limes or Limeys.
Oh yeah, you sent me a text. You were like, boom.
Yeah.
I was like, yeah.
Just a little, like, I don't know, I used to call it Karuba meets King Domino or something. Just everyone, so you're all playing the same cards. You're making like a 4x4 grid, and so you're all making like the same 16 cards that are all part of your deck. But the way that each card, sometimes you put your meeple onto the water space, and the water scores in a certain way, or the forest scored a certain way, or the tower scored a certain way, the field scored a certain way. So yeah, just a really simple kind of, but really elegant little kind of two-player game. Although I suppose if you wanted, you could buy multiple copies and play with more. And then the next one, I went over to a family's house that doesn't really play a lot of board games, but really likes card games. And so we played a game of Wizard.
Oh,
okay. Wizard game, kind of up and down the ladder or whatever.
Yeah.
Kind of along the lines of Skull King.
Yeah.
Sort of in that vein.
Skull King, the Wizard Killer.
That's, sure. But, delightful time with Wizard. Nice little...
Yeah. People go nuts for this game, man.
Mm-hmm. I played this game, when I was 12 or something.
Right.
Like, this was an old classic. But I was like, I saw in their collection, I was like, oh my gosh, I haven't played this forever.
Okay, so then... It's been a long time since I've gotten over to Dave's house. I finally got over to Dave's house, and we played Navigator.
Whoa!
A little Mac Gertz action.
Yes. This is a game I want to play. I've wanted to play for many, many years. I've never played.
I thought it was on your top 100.
No, man. One of the games, Clans of Caledonia, says it takes the market from Navigator. But I've never played Navigator.
You've never played Navigator?
No, I really want to. I love Concordia.
Yeah.
So, I really want to... It's like the only Mac Gertz game I've ever played.
Yeah. So, Navigator, I thought that you had played it. But it is so good. Like, this is like the epitome of mid-weight Euro. And it's really like, we're kind of past this genre in the hobby. Like, we've kind of grown out of this style of game. And it's a real tragedy because... There's something really kind of pure about this design, The elegant design has gone the way of the dodo, I think. Mm-hmm. We're in the era of let's mash all the mechanics that we can into one thing and see how well we can do that. Let's kind of beef this thing up and try and keep the game at the core, but add as much as we can without it breaking. Mm-hmm. Whereas Navigator is just crisp, clean, nice, really good tension, and super boring theme of trading in the Mediterranean or whatever else, But basically what's really captivating about the game is that you have ships. You're moving these ships down this kind of canal along coastlines, and you're able to sort of build colonies along the coastline or kind of gain resources from along the coastline. And there's different things you can do. And so you do this by an action selection rondelle. Mm-hmm. And so you can move up to 3 spaces on this rondelle, but then you can get rid of ships off of the board if you want to move further along the rondelle. So you can kind of push your luck a little bit in terms of, not push your luck, but you're taking a hit in order to do the action you really wanted to do. So you're building shipyards or you're doing other different types of actions. And so you're able to beef up the amount that these different things score you. Mm-hmm. And so you want to make sure that you do that action so that you can kind of get some tokens onto your board so that the things you're doing are making you more points. So you're always looking at other people's boards, seeing kind of what they're getting ahead in, and can you squeeze into that market or should you? But then there's this whole market thing of buying and selling goods, and it's just a really cool kind of power grid style thing. And so you're affecting how much this stuff is worth by interacting. So I got a bunch of a resource and I'm really good to cash in, then a player before me does something and it just plummets in value, and I'm no! So just all these pieces come together really cleanly and nicely. Navigator is a solid solid game.
Cool. So my priest friend and I, who is kind of new to board gaming, got together again, and
You can't get enough.
I know, man, it's great. And so then we played 2 games. We played the Palaces of Carrera,
Whoa!
the second edition, and
The second, you got second edition?
I did.
Carrera!
Oh man,
Wow.
I saw it, and I love Game Brewer. And I was like, yeah, let's.
Yes.
Yeah. I've been looking around for that game for quite some time.
Yeah. Could have stolen it
And,
from my shelf, but...
And yeah, no, just a great little game with that main tension of the same thing that's kind of in Heaven and Ale, which, I mean, they're both Kiesling games, so it kind of makes sense, but that idea of like, when do I score this city? Like, I want to get as much into it as possible, but I can only score it once. Yeah. So once I score it, I can never score it again. And so, but this idea of like, well, I'm also running out of resources, so like, I just need to, I'm just sort of forced to score something, even if I would like to build it up on future turns, even if I have kind of other dreams. But then it's okay, because even though you've scored the yellow city, you're going to later on score all of your libraries. Yeah. And so some of your libraries might be in the yellow city, and so, they also score. And some cities give you points, some cities give you money.
Yeah, that's what I really like about the game, is that it forces you to balance what you're scoring for money and what you're scoring for points.
That's right.
And like, you need points to win the game, but you need money to build the stuff to get the points. Yeah. And the rondelle is really cool.
Yeah, it is.
Different colored marble bricks on a rondelle.
That's right. We played Sagrada, which is just a nice little, roll your dice, place them, try to little puzzle out the orthogonal elements, and really, really enjoy Sagrada.
So staying in the world of kind of that Palace of Carrara style game, this kind of Euro from days gone by, we played Pillars of the Earth. So I brought Pillars of the Earth, finally got it to the table and played. And it had been so long, I only played it once, and it was such a long time ago that we just kind of sat around, watched a how to play video on YouTube, and then got to the table and played it. And like, I remember loving this game. I didn't love it this time.
Right.
I don't know if there's Dave did though. Dave was like, I'm really thinking about buying this. Like he really liked it, but it just sort of felt kind of one note to me or something. So there's these cards that come out that you're able to place a worker next to these cards and take one of these cards, and they go into your tableau. And the cards you collect in your tableau determine what resources you can trade in and contribute to the building of the cathedral. And how many resources and to what ratio will they make you points. The cards are numbered on the back based on the rounds. And so every time you play the game, the same cards are coming out during the same round.
Right.
And so it's a pretty and the fact that these cards that are more valuable are only ever going to come out late game. So you're doing the same thing round after round after round. It's just getting more efficient for you to make points doing the same thing, but it's fully determined by the game. I don't know. That didn't bother me the first time I played, but this time around it just kind of like I felt weird about it. I felt like I was really on rails. So worth checking out. Worth checking out. It's definitely like it's definitely an ancestor worker placement game, Like, just tempering my kind of poo-pooing of this game. The actual worker placement kind of mechanism is brilliant in this game, where your workers are all put into this cloth bag and they're drawn out. And so you can place this worker, but you have to pay a high price. Otherwise, you put your worker down on this little dial, and then the first player draws another token. And they keep on drawing pawns. Price goes down, the more people's pawns get pulled out. And then, once everybody has placed their pawns by paying for them, then you go in the order they were pulled out and placed on this dial. And so it's like, okay, do I want to place it right away and for sure get what I want, but pay a lot of money? Or do I want to kind of risk waiting around for it and see what's left at the end? Yeah. So that's really cool.
Cool. My next game was a game called 10 Penny Parks.
Okay.
Which came out this year, which is...
And you loved this more than Baron Park.
I said it was
explicitly
close.
told me.
I said it may be better than Baron Park. May. I really do like Baron Park. This is kind of the same thing, though. You have these sort of polyominoes that you're putting into your park, but each attraction that you build has a certain kind of theme to it. It's like a dinosaur theme or whatever. but you have to pay a cost for these things, and you put them in your city, but then they also give you, like, sometimes they give you income, or they give you some kind of additional benefit that you'll get sort of throughout the game. And so there's this kind of wheel that spins that makes certain tiles more expensive and certain tiles less expensive. And so a big part is, like, if you're the first player, you get to kind of decide, what tiles are cheap and what tiles are expensive. So yeah, just a really kind of attractive theme, kind of like old style, like vintage trade art. It's kind of like it's a carnival, but it's kind of like a 1920s fair, at least with like the artwork. So it has that kind of classical feel to it.
Nice.
So yeah, really interesting game. And then I played a couple solo games of a game that I haven't played in a long time, but I really enjoy, and that's Mutants. This is a game by Lucky Duck Games.
Whoa! I knew Mutants for a time.
Okay, and it's just like a little like card kind of player, like a kind of combat system.
Yeah, like a dueling game.
Yeah, Magic or whatever, kind of in that style. But it's really interesting. You place a card in the middle, and then it either goes to the left or the right, and it kind of like sticks around for a bit until eventually it gets pushed off, and then it does something when you play it, and the card does something when you leave. And so it's really kind of interesting tension of like, do I want this card to leave right now? It's got a good ability. But also, like, as long as it stays in play, maybe it also has an ability that I can benefit. So maybe I don't want it to leave right away. So just that tension. The solo mode is really kind of interesting. You're just fighting against a boss. And so that was kind of my solo game of the month.
Okay.
It was Mutants.
Yeah, that's cool. No, that's a Senfun Lin game. You've been playing lots of Senfun Lin.
Yeah.
That's great. Next. Played a game with my good friend, Father Greg.
Oh, wow, that's weird. I didn't think you were going to say me. Strange.
We played Wayfarers of the South Tigris.
Wow, did we ever?
Holy Toledo. So, okay, here's the thing. Over the course of the year, we've kind of both, Father Greg has gotten on the bandwagon of Gargoyle games early, but like over the course of the year, I definitely have fallen in love with their designs. And so really excited for Wayfarers of the South Tigris. And so we got to the table, and you know what, for me, like, I think it's an excellent game. I really enjoy it. I thought it was fun. But the sort of accessibility of it is interesting.
Interesting's a good word.
Because just like, there's all of these card rows on the outside of the board. And there's different sort of point icons and things. But like, they all have similar iconography. But the iconography sort of works different depending on the card row you're looking at. So it makes sense why they made the decisions they did, but it just sort of throws you off at first to be like, so that's a point? No, that's not a point. But that's a point? Yeah, that's a point.
Right.
That's the same thing. No, that's different.
That's right.
It's like, okay. But basically, like, it's a really cool set collection game where you have no idea what you're doing. You have no idea what you're going for. You don't know how it's going to work out. There's this really great kind of track at the main center board that you're moving a pawn along that gets you bonuses. But it doesn't really help you win the game. Like, it does inadvertently, but there's like no points on it. But it's kind of like, it was our first game, and I was just like, well, I guess I'll just follow that. I'll just kind of get the resources I need to progress to the next square and hope that it kind of works out. But I had a really nice, vast sky. I was looking for more stars, and the very next card would have been another star. No, so you're basically just collecting cards and building out land cards, sea cards, and then different kind of like space cards. And they all score points in sort of different ways. You're getting points for the number of icons that are on your different cards.
Right.
And so it's a game that kind of forces you to diversify and to focus at the same time. So you're kind of caught in...
That's right. You get 100 cards. One gives you 3 points for every observatory you have. The other one gives you 2 points for every star you have. The other one gives you points for comets. The other one gives you points for planets. And you're basically just like trying to get all these icons. Yeah, I think I'm really excited about the rest of the South Tigris series.
Yes.
I'm really excited about it. I think the one thing that I disliked was, like you said, just the 5 different card rows. Like, keeping track of all of those. Like, they're constantly shifting because everyone's buying this card or that card, and trying to pay attention to, like, what are all of the various options. Like, every turn, the cards that are out are different. And so you're like, okay, what do we got? Okay, I don't want that one. I don't want that one. That one might be good, but I can't afford it. that one looks okay. Like, and just kind of that kind of looking around at every single card maybe bumped it down a little bit for me, but I really did enjoy.
So yeah, it brings cool stuff to the table. So I think I concur with you. Like, the rest in this series, like, is promising a lot, and this is a great foundation.
The next game I played was Crown of Amara, and I've talked about this one. I really enjoy Crown of Amara.
I want to play this so bad.
Just a neat little game. I think that, yeah, there's kind of 2 rondels that you're moving around, so any turn you can move around one of the rondels, and whatever space you land on, you get to do that action, as well as like a little bonus depending upon the card that you play. But there's like the city area, so you can move around in the city, and that's primarily how you score points. And then you can move around on the farmyard, and that's primarily how you get the resources that you need to sort of cash in and score points. So really interesting too. There's 2 scoring methods, and it's the thing where you score the lower of the 2. So you have to like get your building population up, but then you also have to get like your workers up or whatever.
Oh, okay.
And so like whatever's lower is what you score, but your workers always start at 0, but like your buildings, depending upon the game, like can start at 30 or 40 or 50.
Okay.
So like sometimes you're like, oh, my buildings are kind of low, I'm going to need to work on that. Whereas other times you're like, oh, this is a different type of game, you know. My building started really high, so I can really work at just really concentrating on just getting my individual, you know, points up. And then I went over to Christmas Day, and it's Christmas Day, and I went over to my aunt's house for supper, and some of my uncles were around the table, and I have a cousin.
Your favorite uncles.
My favorite uncles, but you know, they're not the best at board games, you know, and you know, I won't say anything derogatory to my uncles, but you know, let's just say I knew that, like, you know, they can only tolerate so much introduction to board games. Like, we're not stepping up. So, but I have a cousin who really likes board games, and I was like, oh, so like, what games do you have? And she's like, well, I got Scythe, and I've got like Terraforming Mars. And I was like, all right, sweet. I'm gonna go back to my car. I'll be right back.
This cousin sounds crazy. It's Christmas Day. We got a bunch of old men sitting around.
Let's
play Scythe.
We've like never played board games before.
Yeah.
But anyway, so we played Point Salad.
I love the passion.
That's right. So yeah, so we played Point Salad, and Point Salad went over great. We played like 3 rounds of it, and then just like totaled up whoever had the highest score at the end, and yeah, really fun.
Well, you were playing Point Salad on Christmas Day. I don't know what else you could possibly think of on Christmas Day other than Everdale.
Nice.
So we played a nice game of Everdale. We were over at friends of ours. They had us over Christmas. We don't have family in town, so they were like, hey, come over and hang out with us. And so we did. And I find Everdale a great game to play with couples. When you're kind of doing like a double date style thing or whatever. Like, Everdale is really good because you can sort of, everyone gets on board with the cute animals. And the gameplay is complex enough that the gamer side gets in. But it also, like, you can manage. Like, you can. It does get a little overwhelming at first for new players, but you can. It kind of walks you through. It kind of holds your hand and guides you. Everything you need is on the text on the cards. I know that some people don't love text on cards, but you know, it works well. And something that I've done recently is I got the Belfair expansion for Everdale a while ago. I don't really do expansions very often. I've started to play with it, but one thing that I'm really grateful for, I haven't really played with the Belfair expansion. But one thing that I do use all the time now is the achievement cards, the advanced achievement cards. So normally in the base game, it requires you to have 2 very specific types of cards, like a critter and a construction, or 2 different critters. So like you're looking for like individual cards, whereas the Belfair expansion comes with advanced achievements that are just like first to get 5 critters, first to get 5 constructions, first to get like some just some reasonable goals.
That's right.
And so I just love playing with that as well. So
no, I agree. That's
had a really nice time playing Everdale.
The next 2 games that I played on Christmas with my uncles and cousin, we played a game of Cryptid, which sort of blew their mind, but we made it through. And then Tiny Towns. Tiny Towns is just a perennial classic. Great for families. Like, it plays up to 6. It does. Yeah, that's my kind of like Christmas family game. It's like, cool, let's bring Tiny Towns. It'll go over well. Yeah,
always does. Tiny Towns is ballin', man. It's ballin'. That's an evergreen if I've ever seen one.
That's true.
Holy Toledo. I got the boys Dragomino for Christmas. So this is King Domino kids version, essentially. And there's dragons. And major flop. They just didn't...
Really?
I played half a game with Ethan, and he was like, okay, no thanks. And so I was like, what? I think it's excellent for that kind of kids rendition. I think it's a really good iteration of King Domino. Basically, you got a bunch of dragon eggs of different colors that you scatter around the kind of table. And then you have a starting personal board, and then you have the tiles that you draft. And so this time there's only one row of 4 tiles. And whoever is the player who last drew a dragon egg that turned out to be a cracked shell and not an actual dragon, they get to draft first. And so they just draft a tile, they add it to their own little tableau, and when you connect terrain types on your dominoes, you get to draw an egg of that color, and if it's a dragon, you get a point, and if it's not, you don't. And so you put those tokens onto your board, kind of connecting the 2 pieces, and you just keep on doing that until all the tiles have been played through, and whoever has the most dragons on their board at the end wins. So a very simple iteration. But I think the fatal flaw of the game, and why my boy didn't like it, was just that the luck factor was still quite high, and uncontrollably so. So in my first Carcassonne, I can make a suboptimal move to keep the game going.
That's right.
Dragomino, I can't know where the dragons are to when I draw an egg of that color. I'm just left, oh shoot, it's a dragon. I didn't want that to happen right now. So I drew 3 dragons in a row, and he drew 3 broken shells in a row, and he was like, I'm out. And I was like, yeah, I get it. Right. So that was my only sort of thing, is that it's straight up luck. You have some strategy in how you're lining up your tiles so that you have more chances to draw dragon eggs, but ultimately you're just drawing blind and hoping for the best. But for kids, I think it would work, but
cool.
My kids not so much.
Well, speaking of kids games, I have 2 nieces and a nephew, but the nephew's 2, and so he's not really playing board games yet. But my eldest niece is 7, and the other one's 5.
Nice.
So they're at that age where a lot of board games say 8 and up. So it's they're just able to kind of begin to get out of a kid's game, my first Carcassonne, and just get into something that adults can have fun with too.
Yes.
And so for Christmas I got them Kids Chronicles: The Quest for the Moonstones,
okay.
which is kind of a kids adaptation of Chronicles of Crime, which I really enjoy. Same sort of principle. You have to use your smartphone and you're scanning QR codes on cards, trying to kind of solve a mystery, but has a couple things really well going for it. The first is it's cooperative, which just works great with a family kind of game, because I'm no longer trying to weaken my own state just so that the kids have fun. Yeah. But I'm okay, let's solve this together. What do you think we should do? Yeah. And it's just it's a kind of cat and mouse kind of thing where you get an item and you're not sure what that item's for. You get a key and you're all right, we have a key. I don't know what. All right, but then you go along and you find a treasure chest. You're well, what do you think would happen if we put that key in the treasure chest? I don't know. Let's find out. And
this is crazy.
That's right. And there's a giant that's asleep, and you're well, we need to wake him up. What do we need? Well, we need a ladder to be able to reach him. Well, where are we going to find a ladder? So then you leave the giant and you go on your searching, and all of a sudden you see a guy with a ladder, but he won't give it to you unless you give him some fish. So you gotta go find some fish, and then you go find the fish, you go get the ladder, you wake up the giant stops the avalanche.
That's fun. Yeah. That's really fun.
It's just so it creates this really compelling story. The kids like it because it has this kind of quasi VR kind of setup where they get to stand up and look at the scene and try and see, I see a ladder, and so they're yelling, I see a ladder. Okay, great. And so the kids just love this. We played 3 games straight in a row, and they were no, we can't be done yet. And I'm well, we'll save the rest for another day. They almost finished
for
the
another
story.
year.
They almost finished the whole story in one play, but yeah. So this went over really, really well. And then I played a game of Unmatched with some other friends, Mary and Dallas, and Cobble and Fog.
So does that play 3?
So one was putting the kids to bed.
Okay.
It's kind of a 2-player game. It does play 3. But there it's kind of a little bit, who do you attack? It's kind of that choice of do I attack the weakest person and get them out of the game? But then maybe the 2 people need to team up against the guy who's currently doing best and so on. But you can do it with 3, but I think it plays best at 2.
Next, I played a game with a good friend, Father Grimm.
Wow.
This was Brazil Imperial.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a fairly new release. People call it like a 4X game, and I guess it is. So it's a 4X style game, but a relatively quick playtime for that style of game. And so this is set in Brazil, and you're essentially colonizing Brazil. Mm-hmm. But it's very conscious of its source material. Mm-hmm. And so the cards and the flavor text are quite sensitive to this style of theme for people who might not appreciate colonial themes. It has flavor text and things that really make you think, oh, they're like good people who are, who are not taking this for granted or not taking this lightly. And you know what? So this game, it's a nice action selection mechanism. I call this the villainous action selection mechanism, where you have actions available to you and you have one token or pawn that you are moving between the actions, and so the only rule is that you can't do the action that you just did, but you can do anything else. And surprisingly, even though all these options are available to you except for the one you just did, it is restrictive enough to make for a fun puzzle to try and figure out, like, okay, well, I really want to just build again, but okay, so what's the next best optimal thing for me to do while I'm waiting to do the thing that I really want to do? So that's a cool thing to try and figure out. And basically what you're doing is you're just kind of building buildings on a map, kind of next to your sort of capital, and you're producing different resources and goods, but the resources get produced like on the building, on the map. And so then your opponent can come along and they can seize your building, and then they can spend the resources off of your building because they now own it. And so there's some interesting interplay. In a two-player game, it's just sort of like you slowly build up, and then eventually you kind of meet in the middle and start to take over each other's stuff. But I guess the bread and butter of the game are these mission cards that you receive at the beginning of the game. And they give you your sort of roadmap for the game. So they say, okay, like, build 2 plantations, build a city, and produce 3 of this resource or whatever.
Right.
So then you accomplish that, and then it gets you some victory points, but it also moves the game on to the next age or era, which then you're able to gain access to the next kind of level of buildings that now produce better things. And so a little bit of that Pillars of the Earth thing where certain resources are coming out to the end, but I found this a bit more, just did it in a smoother way where you see it coming better. You're able to kind of plan for it better, this kind of thing. And so again, a game that brings a bunch of different mechanisms and kind of marries them together. But this has that classic Euro feel that I really appreciate in a game. But this one I do want to play again more immediately, and I'm kind of like, and the colors and the art, just like, everything for me is just like, it draws me in. I'm like, yeah, just that, it has that classic Euro feel. It's just good. So this game has a lot of promise for me. How did you find it? I feel like you weren't too hot on it, but maybe...
No, it's exciting. The building with the resources on the buildings is really interesting. We played a map that, like, each map has like a kind of like a conflict rating. It was supposed to be like a high conflict game, but it wasn't like really until the very last like couple turns.
Yes.
Once you do attack and occupy the right territories, there is like a pretty sizable advantage to it, but it was difficult to grok, at least at first,
Yes.
Like, I was like, I'm building up an army and I'm attacking you, but, like, I don't really know what I'm getting out of it yet.
Yeah,
like,
so once you start to realize, oh, that's a 5-point city, and if I get it, I'll get those points, then it's
That's
like,
right.
okay, let's go. And this game also, like, it's the king of, like, extra bonus cards. There's, like, 2 different decks of bonus cards, one for combat, one for just extra little cheaty things, tactics cards almost.
That's right. So I was at Marion Dallas's as well. We played a number of games. So after Unmatched, we played Jamaica. They went out and bought Jamaica because he had played it with you.
They did!
And he really enjoyed it.
Yes!
So and picked up Jamaica, so we played a game of
yes!
Jamaica. Had a lot of fun with that. And then they went and picked up Ticket to Ride Nordic Countries.
Yes!
And so we went and
These
we
are
played
excellent
both
games.
of those.
Punchboard Party certified.
That's right. Steel of approval.
That's right.
Take that, Dice Tower. But yeah, no, so Ticket to Ride Nordic Countries. Nice 3-player kind of version of Ticket to Ride, like smaller 2 or 3 player.
Yeah.
Really tight, lot of aggressiveness. I think it's easily one of the most aggressive Ticket to Rides that can cause
Yes.
And there was definitely any good Ticket to Ride. There was some tension.
Yes.
It was
the room got blue.
Yeah. But it went really well.
Yeah. No, that's great. Then we played after Brazil Imperial. We played finally. I had it on my shelf for a better part of a year. Guild of Merchant Explorers. And this is essentially a flip and write, but there's no writing. You have cubes that you're placing out on your personal map to mark the kind of terrain choices that you got. But basically, you got a map, and there's different terrain types. And then cards are going to be drawn that will tell you kind of how many cubes and on what terrain you can place them. But the big game changer in this is that there's these cards that are like the main kind of terrain cards, except they're super powered. And basically a card will come up that will indicate, okay, you draw 2 of these special cards and you choose which one you're going to keep, and then you assign it to the era 1, the era 2, the era 3, whatever. And so then in future rounds when that card comes up, it's actually going to be that card that you selected. And it's these kind of super cards where instead of putting 1, 2, or 3 tokens out on your board, you're putting 5 or 6 out. And in a big row or in a line or in a route or just wherever you want, and kind of game breaking. And so basically there's these regions of single terrain types. And whenever you fill in a whole single region, then you're able to put a little village, I think you call them, there. And so then in future rounds, the villages stay. And so instead of just going out from the capital, you can now go out from your villages
That's right.
later rounds. And so that's a key to the strategy that I did not clue into the first round. And I did terribly because I was just starting from square one every time. But yeah, there's all sorts of ways to score victory points. This is a Matthew Dunstan game. Really excellent. Really well designed, really great. For me, has a spot right next to Tiny Towns.
Right.
It'd be a step up from Tiny Towns to introduce to people, but barely.
Right. Yep. This would be, if I redid my top 10 games of 2022.
Yes.
This would for sure be somewhere in that top 10, hands down.
It's absolutely excellent.
I really enjoyed it.
It's a crime that I didn't get it played until now. Yeah.
For sure. My last 2 games I played today, and that was the first
Ryan! Person!
So yeah, I went through this channel. You meet people that you haven't seen in 15 years or something. And so the guy I went to high school with, he noticed us on the channel, and he was like, "Hey, we should play some games."
Yes.
And I was like, "Sweet, I haven't seen you in forever, but yeah, let's do it." And so we got there, and he had a bunch of big games on his shelf. I said, "What are you into?" And he said, "Why not Hallertau?"
Why not Hallertau? See,
so
Rosenberg's gonna get you.
That's right. He's gonna
get you, man.
And yes, we played a game of Hallertau, and
wow.
Yeah, it's there's a couple things that game does that are really interesting. Basically, this is a game though where you cannot go in on one strategy. You can't just be "Oh, I'm just going to focus on getting a bunch of sheep." You do need sheep because you need to get milk and they produce milk. But you have these 5 buildings, and all of these buildings require a different resource to advance. And you have to advance them up on this track. You start the game with 6 workers, but if you advance all of your buildings one space, now you slide your little house over, and the next turn you get 6 workers. And if you slide them over another space, next turn you get 7. But you can slide one building all the way, but if one building's all the way, the other 4 are still stationary, you're still gonna have 6 workers, and you can get up to 12. So, and that's just a crazy detriment. So there's this really interesting sort of mathematical challenge of being okay, this is the house that's furthest behind. To move this house up this round, I'm gonna need 4 bricks and 2 wheat. Okay, how do I get 4 bricks and 2 wheat? But I also need to move up this thing, which needs 2 milk and 1 meat, and then I need to move this thing up that needs 1 flax and 1 wool and it's how do I get all of these things? Because I can't just you can get 5 flax in 1 turn, but it's that's great. I got my flax, I'm set for maybe the next couple turns, but I've advanced that thing a bunch of spaces, but I haven't done anything with the other buildings. So it's really interesting kind of tension that sort of plays out.
The way Rosenberg, he's got you. You thought you didn't like him? Now he's got under your skin.
That's right. I mean, I still like Fields of Arle more than this, I think.
Right.
But it was a solid game for sure.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And then the last game was a game that I played over to my nieces, and I played another game that I got them for Christmas, and that's Animals on Board.
Oh,
so this is once again, this is like an actual board game. This is like Stronghold makes it. It's like it's a basic game, of course, but. You're basically put a bunch of animals. It's kind of like a I split, you choose. On your turn, you take this giant thing, and you can't buy all of these animals, so you have to split them into like 2 different groups. So you decide, okay, I'm going to put these animals over here and these animals over here, and then on their turn, they probably still don't have enough, so they're going to split the pile more, and the next person's going to split the pile more until eventually you have enough resources, enough food to purchase. Because you need like 5. If there's 5 animals in a group, you need 5 food to purchase that.
Okay.
So eventually people are going to have enough food to say, hey, I want to get these 3 animals. And basically you're trying to you're constructing your own little arc. One animal is fine. They range from like 1 to 5. So each animal is going to be worth like 1 to 5 points at the end of the game. But if you get like a set of them, if you get 3 rhinos, then they're all worth 5 points.
Okay.
But if you have 2, Noah steals them away. So Noah comes along and takes the 2 animals and puts them on his arc. So
fun.
So you've got like one fox and another fox appears, and you're like, well, okay, I could take that one fox, but now I need another fox before the end of the game. Otherwise, I'm
no one's going to get
you know.
Yeah, that's cool.
So just a little kind of set collection game, but we had a lot of fun.
I like that. I like that a lot. Okay, the last game that was played in December with Sarah got Dune Imperium played with the Immortality expansion.
Wow.
And you know what? So Dune Imperium is just an amazing game that plays really well at 2 thanks to a really slick automa deck. So I don't love automa decks often, but like this is just really crisp. Just after the first player goes in a round, you just flip a card, send a worker to a place. It gets right in there. It screws things up. It like ruins plans. It acts like another player, and it's not a lot of like onerous work from the player to make it happen. So really like how that plays. Now, Immortality, I played Rise of X in the summer, and I own Rise of X, but I played a different friend's copy, and so then we were like humming and hawing, like, should we try and combine Rise of X and Immortality together? We just decided, let's just play Immortality. We watched a little Rodney Smith how to play video. Sarah was like, well, I know how to do that now, so let's just do that. And so what Immortality adds is it adds these... it's this whole other race. Definitely
know what you're talking about.
That's right. It's a Dune name with X's and stuff. But basically, they kind of reanimate dead bodies is kind of their thing. And so families in the galaxy, they deal with these people, but they're not really happy about it. And so there's this board that kind of acts like the Wayfarer's board, where you kind of move up and you choose your path along these boards, and you get different rewards, and there's some victory points available on the top of the board. But this different race, they add these cards that are called graft. And so you can graft cards together now. So you take a graft card, and then you can add another graft card or a non-graft card to this card. So then you're playing 2 cards to send an agent to a worker placement space. But now you have the option of sending the agent to any of the icons that are represented on the 2 cards. And then you activate all of the agent actions that are on the cards, the 2 cards. And so yes, you're losing 2 cards from your hand instead of 1, so your reveal turn is going to be less. But your agent turn is more flexible. So now it's like, I have an agent action that I really want to do, but it doesn't get me to where I want to go. But if I graft it to this card, now I can go to where I want to go and get the agent action that I do want. And so that's really neat. Adding that flexibility. And what I really found about adding the Immortality expansion is just like Dune Imperium is so good that these expansions, it doesn't feel like it changes the game. It's just like an alternative. Like you're still playing Dune. You're still getting the same feels and vibes. You're just doing it this way instead of that way. And so I basically, last time I played Rise of X, I didn't really do much with the expansion. And my friend won by kind of going with the expansion. And so this time I was like, no, I'm just going to do all expansion stuff and like get my money's worth out of it. And so I did all expansion stuff, had a blast. It was really fun playing with the different mechanisms, trying with the different things, getting points in different ways. And Sarah she mainly played base Dune. And she eked out the victory.
Wow.
She had an intrigue card that got her to pay a few spice to get an extra point, and that closed out the game early.
Wow.
And I was like, darn it! But no, so love Dune Imperium. The Immortality expansion is great. Adds an extra little card row too, just like 3 cards that are available that you gain with a different resource. And so no, good stuff all around.
Cool.
Recommend. So party people, those are the games that we played this month. What did you play this month? Let us know down below. And before we go, we're going to say what our favorite game this month was. So you let us know down below what your favorite game was for December. Father Greg, what was your best board game of the month of December?
Yeah, I think I would have to say Guild of Merchant Explorers.
Wow!
I really enjoyed my play of that. It was really fun.
Yes, that makes sense to me. That makes sense to me. But I gotta go with Dune Imperium Immortality.
Nice.
That's what I'm saying is my best of the month. Again, what are your best of the month, people? Until next time, party people.
Have the best day.